Is there anything you wanted to do before people depart and go to their ways and all that thing to head up to your room, Agitha? Nothing major, I hope. Just,
No, nothing major.
We could save that for tomorrow. Okay, so you can head up to your room.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me do a little intro here. And as you see your friends off, Agitha, Vigrad, Cassandra, they make their way to their rooms and out of sight. You've decided it's time to head up to your room. You have a special little room in the back upstairs floor of the Rowdy Rockfish Inn, set aside just for you. And you've been staying there since you arrived back in Otari. You head up to your room, up the steps in the lonely hallway, passing by all the doors on the left and the right. You round a corner, going to the left, and you see this one familiar door. It's your chamber. No other rooms are around after you turn this corner. And you make your way into your chamber. It's dark, the way you prefer it to be. The drapes have been pulled. It serves its purpose. Simple. Let me actually bring your token on over. Yeah, let me do that here. Gotta find the damn things. Active PCs. There you are. Let's bring you on here. Make you a little bit bigger. Scale? Is that what I want to change? Let's bump it up to 1.7. Your token will be a little bit bigger. Now, let me hold down Shift. Bring over Frey. Well, let's make you a little bit bigger as well. 1.7. That's not bad. Make it invisible. Now, Frey, where are you at this point in the Rowdy Rockfish? It's kind of, folks are leaving. Obviously, the companions are staying here at the Rowdy Rockfish, most of them anyway, and you found yourself alone, and you've watched Agitha, one of the last to leave, go up those steps. What are you doing at this stage?
Well, I was out doing my shopping and crafting. And after that, it's just a matter of waiting. I figure since, being part of the city guard for a year, I kind of know the patterns of some people. Obviously not these folks because, they're in and out, they're adventurer types. So I'll give it some time. Once I notice that everybody starts going to their rooms and so on and so forth, give it a little bit of time. And then without it being too late, I would like to go up to her room and just knock on the door.
Okay. So you wait till she's well out of sight and gone to her room.
Well, it's more about the other folks than her, but yeah.
Okay. You do so. You head up the top of the steps. She's made her way out of sight. But I will say you do see her, briefly, disappear around a corner at the far end of the upstairs floor. She turns left. Now, you don't know where she stays. But you follow just out of sight, and you've seen her turn to the left, and you hear a door quietly close. If you want, you could proceed to the door down that hallway.
Yep, absolutely. I'll follow.
Okay, you do so. You hear a knock on the door, Agitha.
Agitha's gonna look a little startled, thinking, why would anybody be bothering her at this time of night? But she puts her Spidey down on the one table, and then she walks over to the door, lightly putting a hand on it, and keeping a normal tone, but still slightly loud enough for the person on the other side to hear. She goes, "Who is it?"
It's Frey.
If you're here to torment me, I'm not about to put up with it.
I was just coming up to check on you.
Why would you be checking up on me?
Well, you looked pretty near death earlier today. I'm not here to kill you or anything weird like that, if that's what you think.
Do you open the door and let him in?
She flexes her left hand, kind of trying to get out any possible tension built up. And then she goes, "If you try to cause any argument, any kind of annoyance,
Well, I can't speak to annoyance, but as far as arguing, right now it looks like you're looking for the argument, not me.
at that she's just gonna rip open the door and look at him. She goes, "The only annoyance I find right now is someone who was whining and complaining inside of a dark tower. So, I'm not the one who's seeking an argument. It's the one who's standing in front of me."
Well, it's good to see that you're doing better. I just wanted to know how you were feeling. Can you feel?
Can you feel?
Do you want to slice me open and see if I feel?
Not particularly right now. Look, I'm not gonna lie. There's some curiosity that caused me to come up here, but I really wanted to know how you were feeling. You were fairly close to, well, losing a lot down there.
Gonna stick her head out the door, look down the hallway, pull her head back in, sigh slightly with a little bit of annoyance. She's gonna go, "If we're gonna argue, just step inside, because I don't feel like having the occupants downstairs having to hear us argue back and forth and possibly screaming, so step inside."
Thank you for inviting me in. And I enter. I'll still stand, I wouldn't call it attention, but military standing. You know, definitely keeping my bearing.
Describe the room, Agitha. What does Frey see when he steps into this chamber?
As he steps into the chamber, he's going to notice immediately how there's very little to almost no light in the room, like has very, very dark, very ominous. And as he steps in further into the room, he's going to notice a canopy bed off to the one corner. The sheets look a little ragged, little where here and there. Little table side that's got a book that's halfway open, and a light source that she continuously keeps off. On the floor there is a kind of a rug, but it looks really, really worn, like nobody's really paid attention to it. And in the other corner there is a kind of a dresser / table that has a little library shelves on it. And then in front of it, it's going to have a lone chair that looks a little dusty, a little worn, has little cobwebs growing underneath the underside of it, like spiders are making its home there.
Where is Spidey?
Spidey is up in... Spidey's made a little nest for themselves in one of the corners of the library shelves.
Okay.
It's... Frey wouldn't be able to see the creature, but the creature can occasionally from time to time be able to poke down and be enough to where you can just see the eyes, but then pop back up.
So as you step into this chamber, Frey, it's a little bit unsettling for you. You haven't seen a chamber like this ever. This is an inn chamber. Very unusual. The windows, of course, are draped. It is nighttime anyway. But it's very ominous and dark feeling. There is a lone light in the room. You could see there's shadows everywhere in this room. The room also looks very unkempt, like as if it was a unused room, but evidently Agitha perhaps prefers such. You can only imagine. But that's what you see when you step into this chamber.
Well, I might raise an eyebrow or something, but again, military bearing, keeping it. I will look around just to make sure that there are no bats or anything flying out of the ceiling to attack my face. But other than that, I'll enter, stand with my bearing, but, at first, I thought they were joking. But it's true, isn't it? You are cursed.
So you think my curse is hilarious?
Not at all.
Yeah, you still thought this is a joke, yes?
I thought they were joking about it. You don't want to know what the guard says about you.
She's going to raise an eyebrow before walking over to her library. As Frey watches, she's going to stick her hand up in the top shelf and wait for her little spidery creature to come down and pop onto her hand.
It comes down on your hand.
So was it dark magic? What? Help me to understand, because somebody said, well, you said that you were, I don't even want to say the word.
Say and get it over with.
So you're a vampire. And from what I know, vampires, well, at least from all the stories, suck blood, conquer worlds, tempt people. And while we might not have had so many flattering things to say about you behind our breaths, we just thought that, most people think that you're just an oddity. But if this is real, this is serious.
Agitha just throws like a hollow bark of a laugh as Spidey just hangs onto her on the back of her hand before she makes over and sits down. So now I'm curious what the guard talk about me as.
Probably don't want to know. It's nothing dangerous.
Humor me.
You're a sideshow. You're a freak. You're cursed at birth. Parents should have thrown you in a river. The only thing that that causes them to not do anything, one, more issues to deal with than that, and two, you have somehow ingratiated yourself, and this is where the curiosity comes in. I've never read a story or heard family tell of anything that goes along with the term vampire that ends up being good, ends up being beneficial, always ends up being a tragedy. So I'm absolutely curious. I don't understand.
And when he says all this, Agitha, it confirms to you that, yeah, he doesn't understand, because everything he just said about vampires is not the case in your case.
Anything else that the guards talk about, Mias?
Nothing worth consequences, nothing more than what they'd say about anybody. I'm sure they're talking about me now. You mind if I have a seat in this chair?
Agitha motions towards the chair.
I'll sit down. Non-casually, again, keeping my bearing. Thank you. After what I saw up north, we'll just say the history with myself and people like Vigrod, you have to understand that I'm very skeptical right now. The guard in me wants to protect the people here. The soldier in me, after seeing what I saw, wants to run away further. I feel like the curse has come down here, and I don't know if you're indicative of that or just coincidental to it.
The curse I bear and the curse that is in that tower is two different things.
Or it could be all tied to what came down from the north. Vigrod hasn't told you anything yet, has he?
In terms of what?
What we fought. Or what we think we fought. I don't even know what it was. All I know it was dark magic. There's no other explanation for it. And I'd hate to lose another home. Uncomfortably reach in for my water skin to take a drink.
Agitha's just watching him for a few minutes, just listening and taking in everything he is saying. So is that the reason why Vigrid is so on you about you running away?
Well, he doesn't know everything. I wouldn't call what I did running away, but from his side I can see that. And yes, I am skeptical of him in terms of, I think he might want to bring me back for some sort of court-martial. I'd prefer that he not do that. I also prefer not to be conscripted back into the war. However, if it is come down here, and I lean forward when I say this, if it is come down here, I will fight to protect Otari. What I won't do is lay my life down at the orders of somebody who wants glory.
Seems as if you're getting that idea construed then, if that's what you're thinking.
Do tell.
Agitha shrugs. You claim to be wants to be a soldier. You claim to be wants to be a guard. But how can you be both whenever they are both warring with each other?
Oh, there's no war with regard to that. My war actually started with Vigrod. I lived here for a year. I've known about you. What do you call yourselves? The companions? I've known about you for a while. I know all the mischief that Sheppi's caused. I know where the discount dwarf lives. I generally know of you. With that said, I mean, the Guard's a pretty big place. We lived our own lives, we did our own things. I came down here to start a new life. And now it seems that my old life is, I wouldn't say caught up with me, because that implies that I did something wrong, which I didn't. But there are problems that are going to come, and it might not be with him personally, but what Vigrad represents. Strangely enough, I can tell you I trust him. Well, I trust him in what he believes that he thinks he's doing is right.
Yet you two are willing to bicker and almost borderline yell at each other inside of a tower where creatures are trying to kill us. We are trying to kill the essence inside, and yet you both believe it to be alright to start arguing?
No better time than the present.
You're missing what I'm saying. Your arguing could have caused the entire group to be found and probably more than likely either tortured, executed straight on the spot, or probably even worse, used as puppets for Belcora.
How is that any different than the noise of magical chains flying across the room, the grunts and groans and the sounds of clanking of swords and shields on armor, the moaning and screeching of big, what the hell were those things? Slug people. Our yelling did no more than what those sounds were.
Those are probably sounds that the creatures within are so used to hearing. They're probably... I can't say they are borderline of human thinking, but they are probably used to hearing those kinds of sounds as if like nothing to them. Now, hearing people argue, no fighting in terms of swordplay, shadow, anything of that sort of nature. It's just people yelling at each other. That's when it might draw creatures towards you.
It's possible, yes. I'm not going to say that you're wrong there, but it's possible. But it didn't, so I'm not going to...
And what if it had? What if it had drawn so many creatures that not even the gnome cleric that was with us could have kept everybody alive? We would have all possibly been turned into puppets for Belcora. Did it not occur to you that that could have happened?
I died once in there already. I feel like I'm walking on borrowed time anyway. Again, your point is well taken. I get that. But nothing did happen, so I'm not going to sit there and second guess what we did. As far as going forward, well, I've already given him my sword, so... Look, how do you think I feel coming from this side? Finding out that, again, not exactly understanding what it meant at first. And to be fair, I probably don't understand what it means right now. But of what you are, and then watching you supplicate yourself to spirits. I don't know if that's real. I don't know if you're trying to sell us out. I have a good idea you were not, but in the moment, that's that's not the type of behavior that endows trust. Yes, I screamed. Yes, I have no use for the types that Vigrad represents, but what had happened if they accepted your agreement?
Do you honestly believe I would have turned on the group?
I don't know what to believe.
Then what made you come up here and talk to me whenever you don't even believe that?
Curiosity, like I said, and I would like to be convinced.
Curiosity killed the cat. Have you not ever heard that saying before?
Apparently I have not. I know if you want to stop mischief, you kill a goblin, but hey, I'm sure that's not going to go well in the group because that's just a wives' tale.
Lay a hand on that goblin, and I will make sure you bleed the entire way to Belcora.
See, this is what I'm talking about. I argue, you threaten. I've never once...
How much do you even know of creatures that survive in the shadows? How much do you know of creatures that fight to survive?
Well, if you're talking about thieves, I know quite a bit. If you're talking about monsters, not at all. I'm open to education.
I will try to create this image in the best way of a scholar can for a student. Though I am no scholar. I am only someone who has traveled a long road, who has seen many things, and continues to endure an ever-living battle that never ends. Now, say you go to war. You fight your battles. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and then eventually maybe the whole war wins and you can come home, you've got your family, you've got your friends, you've got a place to relax, enjoy yourself. For me, that war never ends. It is a constant battle between my humane side and my vampiric side. I could have easily let go of the restraint that I had, and I would probably more than likely have killed both you and Viagrad. I probably would have gotten Althea upset with me, and I probably would have had Sheppy threaten to hit me with fire. But explaining what I had done would have probably eventually got them to see my reasoning. Yet I didn't, because my more humane side was telling me not to do it.
How long can that last? Because even as you tell me that story, you have veiled threats.
Veiled threats that will not be carried out unless it is come to that.
And what will push you to that part? The fact that Vigrad and I yell at each other?
The fact that you two nitpick with each other.
We're both military men. No enlisted person trusts his officers. Well, that's not true. Let me rephrase that. No military person fully respects his officers because we think that they're lazy and they send us to our deaths, which in his personal case, I can't speak to. But in the case of what happened with my unit, absolutely did happen. He sees us as tools to be thrown at a wall over and over again. There's always going to be some nitpicking and animosity. There's always going to be some sort of, screw you. But maybe, and I understand, things were happening at that time, probably more concerning to you, considering how close it seemed that you were, can you die? I don't even know. But we have done nothing to harm anybody here. In fact, we are trying to do our best, maybe misguidedly in some cases, to keep everybody alive. And I can tell you that I might be louder, brash, whatever words people want to use, but you're going to find that he won't put up with nonsense compared to me. And that has me a bit scared that I'm going to get blamed and put in the same category as him. You don't have to like what I say. I don't care if you like what I say. but I've done nothing actions-wise to step in anybody's way to harm anybody. I've never threatened any of you. I have never stopped you from doing anything that you want to do. So somehow I get thrown in here over some words, whatever. What I'm concerned about is that those words caused you, and again, I can be slow sometimes. It took me a little moment to figure out that maybe the stuff that they're saying is true. Your teeth grew, just like the monsters of legend. That's, again...
Because you pushed me to that point. You made me get to that point where I had to seem more than what I appear. You're arguing, you're complaining, you're whining. The animosity between you two made me so sick, and I had to get stopped to it.
Yeah, that's between him and me, not between
And
you.
it was starting to affect the rest of the group, which was irritating me to the point where I was almost getting ready to, do something that I have never wished to do on a human.
So to be clear, irritation is going to cause you to try to kill me. Or at least threaten it. I won't say you caused. Is this the fine line that we're walking with that inner turmoil with you?
I can be calm when necessary. I can be calm when it is needed. My calmness and patience dissolve whenever I have to deal with people who seem to absolutely feel it necessary to argue over something that can be dealt with outside of a dangerous situation.
Well, you brought me into the dangerous situation, so I don't know about that.
You stepped into the dangerous situation whenever you both stepped into this tower. You both knew the risk, and you both did it.
Oh, it started before then.
You still stepped in it, and you knew the risks.
I don't have a choice.
You still stepped in. And you can't say you never had a choice, because you had a choice. You could have either said no to Vigrod, and you could have turned around and walked away. Yeah, it could have gotten you problems, but you still had a choice. You could have walked away, or you could have walked into that tower with him. You chose willingly to step in that tower with him, so you cannot say you did not have a choice. You had a choice.
Hey, Fritz. So at this point, I'm unconsciously, not even looking, reaching into my coat pocket and pulling out the talisman, or the amulet, whatever we're calling it, and just going to start looking into its eyes as she's talking.
Okay. You do so. And as you finish those words, Agitha, you feel wetness running down the right side of your cheek, where you were injured earlier. Your hand immediately, instinctively, reaches up and you feel the beginning of a drop of blood begin to come down over your cheek. Immediately, you think of that chest. What do you do?
Would she be able to recognize what he's holding in his hand?
I'm not hiding it, so to speak, if that matters. I'm just holding it, looking at it.
He has something in his hand. You can't make it out. There is a chest under your bed. Do you retrieve it?
She's gonna make her way over to it.
It's right under the bed. I assume you're near the bed and close by. It's right there.
Mm-hmm.
While she's doing that, a couple of times, somewhat silently, as I'm looking at it, I'm just like, no, I didn't have a choice.
Do you slide the trunk out? The chest?
Mm-hmm.
You do so. Nonchalantly, while this conversation is going on. And if you're paying attention, Frey, you'll see her go over towards the bed a few feet away from where you're seated and talking. And
I would pay attention if she comes into like enough. If she's close enough to me to where she could attack me, punch me, stab me, whatever. Other than that, I'm focused on the amulet.
Okay. She slides out this medium-sized chest from under her bed. I assume you reach for the contents.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you open it up and you pull out a mirror. It's like a lady's mirror. And you close up the chest and turn yourself back around facing Arthurian, not Arthurian, Frey, sitting on the bed, I would imagine. And as you continue this conversation, you begin looking into the mirror. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Wiping the blood off your cheek. Now, Frey, are you paying attention? Would you enough to be able to see the blood?
Not until she says something or there's something that grabs my attention again. Right now, I'm just kind of figuring my character's not entranced, but is having I'm reliving the thing that Vigrad and I went through when I first started.
You are. Okay. Now, Agitha. We'll leave it at that. Continue your conversation.
Now, as she is dealing with the mirror, would she have heard him muttering under his breath, saying that he did not have a choice?
Go ahead and make a perception blind.
Okay.
Oh. What'd you get? Or never mind. You don't know.
A question mark.
Yes. Let me see. Yes, you heard it very clearly.
Agitha is going to, as she's holding the mirror in her hand is going to slowly contract, like closing in on itself, and you could faintly start to hear her knuckles start to crack, one after another, while her gaze is still on the mirror. But her presence is starting to have that more foreboding, more darkening presence. Like there's something starting to build within the room. And she's...
So knuckle popping is something that would probably grab my attention because that's how a lot of fights start. At that point, I will realize that I'm holding on to the amulet that I don't want to be holding on to, and somewhat subtly, as much as a guard, not a thief, can do, I put it back in my pocket.
And can I check to see if Agitha sees what he's doing?
Are you looking at him? Or are you looking at that mirror, aren't you?
She's looking at the mirror, but she can still see out of the corner of her eye towards him.
Okay, let's see how much details you do pick up. Give me another perception blind.
Okay.
While she's doing that, I would also like to see if I notice that she's bleeding when I put it back.
Blind perception.
Okay. Sounds good.
No, Agitha. You do not see.
Okay.
Frey, you recognize the droplets of blood. You also notice that she is trying to conceal it. from your sight. The blood.
Okay. I won't say anything.
But you do notice it.
I'll try not to look.
You also notice the open wound on her head.
Oh, so this is a full-on wound.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, then I retract what I said.
She was
Are
She was badly injured in the previous fighting in the
Right.
gauntlight.
She still had multiple shards of glass within her from the psychic blast.
Are you okay? You still seem to be bleeding, and this is honestly why I came up here to Taiwan. Did want to make sure that you were okay.
As the room is still slowly darkening, her gaze would move up towards his. And still holding that mirror in front of her, you would start to notice something. That the wound on her cheek was slowly, very slowly, starting to heal.
I'm just watching intently right now. I have no planned action at this moment.
And as you watch intently, you do notice that the blood that was dripping is immediately dried up, and the wound from which it's coming from slowly begins to almost close.
Is that something you are doing or the mirror is doing? And next question is, why weren't you doing this before? I'm sitting up definitely at sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sitting up at attention now, a little nervous as to what's going on, but not making any threatening moves or whatever.
Have you noticed in my room, there is no mirrors. There is no other way that you can see my reflection.
You can see your reflection?
Not myself. I'm asking you, can you see any windows, any mirrors in this room that could possibly reflect my image?
No, but I just figured it was a cheap room. Can you walk across a river?
She can.
I mean, in Frey's mind, he's trying to recount all the stories about this stuff and try to figure out what's true, what's not true, whatever. Like, she could just lie to me, but,
Now, Dizzy, your character has some pretty decent backstory, and you remember all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so your situation is a little bit different. It's up to you how much of that you share. That's really up to you. That's how you became a vampire and all that stuff. That's totally up to you.
Agitha's going to continue to hold the mirror. Not directly in front of her face, but she's going to lower it, where she can still see the reflection. With her gaze now focusing so intensely on Frey, he could probably feel the hairs on the back of his hair next stand up.
I'll lean back a little bit, pretending I didn't.
I will ask you this. How far and how deep are you willing to go to understand what could possibly be tying me to the gauntlight and how my life has become what it is now?
I can't answer. I don't know. Anything that would, I guess, affect what we're doing. Other than that, your life is your life. I just want to know that, look, that this isn't going to consume you. And if it is going to consume you, how do we stop it? And if we can't stop it, when is it going to consume you?
I will refrain. I will refer back to the question that you asked. You said you did not understand. That you and the guards thought it was a joke of what I am.
We've seen cursed babies before. Usually mothers throw them in rivers and things like that, you know. Other than that, you know, that maybe you were one of the, what do they call them? Pale skins that can't go out in the sun, you know? Not vampires. We don't. Normal people don't have these problems.
You are referring to my very, very far distant, slightly relatable creatures. The ones that you are starting to refer to as our Dampiers. They can be born, but they still maintain mostly their human capabilities. A vampire is not born that way. A vampire is made completely dead before we rise from the death.
I don't understand the difference, but that's fine. So somebody did this to you. Got it. Or did you do this to yourself?
I accept what I became. I accepted what I've become for multiple reasons. And the thing that both amuses me and yet baffles me is how people are so quick to form their opinions, how quick they are to think how one particular person is just by appearance alone.
Well, yet, you know, first impressions usually are accurate.
Yet, instead of giving them an opportunity to show what they actually are, that opinion is ingrained into that individual's head. Now, I have seen multiple times from your side. I have seen multiple times from the humane side of me. Yet, what you fail to see is what I have to endure on a day-to-day basis. That gauntlight, Belcora, I have studied so much of that place. I have studied a great deal of knowledge of it. Yet, I do not hold it above your heads. I have never been like, oh, I know where we're going. Oh, I know how to do this. I do know how to do that.
And as
if you have that information, that would be helpful.
As you say this, Agitha, something, movement, catches your eye. Just beyond Frey, you see some movement like the shadow itself has moved, and it's not the flickering of your light. This is something beyond that. You see something big and shadowy moved. You'd swear by it. You feel a great unease.
Her gaze would faintly shift to that area that she swore she saw something move. And her grip on the mirror would tighten even more to where her skin, if it was looking the way it is now, would like very, very pale, like borderline sheet white.
Go ahead and make another blind perception check. You're looking just beyond where you might have seen movement in the shadows. Go ahead and do that. Give me a blind perception check. Maybe there's something there. Maybe there's not. You pause for a moment. You notice nothing more. Maybe it was a flicker of the light after all. Hard to say. But you do have a feeling of almost like something was watching.
Would she feel like a tug? Like a very faint tug on her vampiric side, like almost as if it was almost feeding on the shadows around her.
Maybe. Maybe not. You're not sure what it was. But you see nothing at the moment. I mean, you don't see anybody in the room. Other than Frey. And Frey, you don't notice this at all.
How familiar are you with the surrounding area? She's saying that to Frey.
Vaguely. I spent most of my time inside the city, didn't do too much outside of it. I've only lived here a year, but I mean, it's not like it's a metropolis.
Have you heard of the town called Merivon?
I will have to defer to our game master for that. Oh, I can't hear you.
You've probably heard of it. I would say
Okay.
yes, but you don't know much of its details. You've never been far away from where you...
I know the name.
I have to look at my map. Where is Merivon? I don't remember. Where is it, Dizzy?
Merivon is heading... I believe it's along the path heading towards the gauntlight.
Oh, it's on the Starstone Isle. Okay. Yeah, you'd definitely hear about that. But Frey hasn't traveled much, so he wouldn't know much more than the name. Oh, there it is. From where you are in Otari, it's It's probably over a day to the north.
Oh, so it's pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now you
Yeah, for whatever reason, though, I didn't get there. How about that?
Yeah, you come from you're actually from the northwest.
Okay.
Where Kyle's campaign is. Many days away. So you'd know about it, but you don't know. You'd never been there.
All right. Then allow me to regale you. It's probably meaningless, but a little story that plays a significant amount of knowledge for what's currently going on right now, if you allow me.
That would be excellent. Thank you.
Now, let's see here. How do I spin this tale?
I like the truth.
She gives him a slight hollow smirk. Now, in the town of Maravon, not too far from Otari, as you are familiar with, there once was a young girl that decided not to go along with the tradition of part of her family. Her family would be either guards, they would be healers, they would be all sorts of good, shall we say, influencing roles. Well, to her, she felt as if this was done so many times. It was just like a book that she had grown bored of. And that little girl decided that she would break tradition, much to the horror of her mother. And as she would still attend her classes and everything, still doing what she's told, she decides to embark on a different direction, a different path, we'll put it that way. And she decided to... Originally, she was going to go down the path of necromancy, which I'm pretty sure you are familiar with. If not, you've probably heard stories about it here and there, but let's be on the point.
Black magic, yes.
Now, as she continued down this path, she eventually began to become what some of the locals called her to be a witch. But she always kept her things to herself. She always made sure that she didn't annoy people. Mainly kept to being alone. And as she would continue her studies in secret, her understanding began to grow to where she would even make trips as far as Absalom. I don't know if you are familiar with that city.
Again, I've heard of it. Not exactly sure where it is.
You would know about Absalom. It is the city
never
at
mind.
the center of the world. It's about 3 days away to the east. It is one of the biggest cities. It is the biggest city in all of Galarian.
Oh, of course I know about Absalom.
However, she didn't stay very long in that city, as watching people on a daily basis live out their lives in that city kind of starting to put a sour mood, a bad taste, if you will, of how she noticed people were trading knowledge of so much magic that so many people had the ability to where they could go and understand, yet they weren't trying to understand it. It was just as if it was like, oh, that's just for those higher above, we don't need to worry about it. Now, during one of her trips, as she's come back to her town, she comes across a gentleman who, at first, she's never seen before, she's never heard of them, but yet the way he holds himself, the way he talks, catches her attention. And being a curious child that she is, decides to start having conversations with him. And sure enough, after some time, it begins to come to light that this person is also broken from tradition and wanting to go their own way. And as the two began to talk and they began to move towards her town, her depth of knowledge started to grow to where she was like becoming very intrigued with this gentleman. And normally folks would be like, why are you talking to somebody that you'd never heard of, you'd never seen before? Why do you even give that person the time of day? And of course she ignores all their nonsense. And over time they start to talk more and more. Like, she would actually come out of her town and actually see if she could find a way to find him, which miraculously somehow he knew that she was out there. Like, he had an idea where she was. And as time grew, the two became very close. Like, you could tell the two had a very strong bond. Now, moving forward to as they are having conversations one day, he, feeling very comfortable with her, decides to slowly and gradually drop the illusion spell that he had been holding for such a long time, every single time she met him. And to her absolute shock, it was revealed to her that he was immortal. He was a vampire. And he had so many opportunities to where he could have slain her or could have used her as a puppet. He could have done so many things to her, yet he didn't. And it was after he revealed himself, he also made another revelation to her that even though he was a vampire, he was still dying inside. He was still, something was eating away at him that there was no cure of. And as they were continuing to talk, he made it clear why he had not slain her. He had not turned into a puppet. He wanted to pass his knowledge on to another that he felt had the same understanding as he did, had the same open-mindedness. And this girl, which at the point would now be considered an adult, instead of running away, instead of crying for the guards, saying all this and that, she did not run. She was more drawn to it. She was more understanding of why the vampire had chosen to stay hidden for so long. And after showing him that she was not going to run, but instead of actually want to find a way to help him, a way to cure him, he wanted to make sure that all the knowledge he had, every ounce of information that he had, would be passed on to her before he passed on to the next life. Now, unfortunately, the she slowly, unfortunately, had to watch as her companion, now close friend that she had managed to hold for so long, eventually faded, eventually passed on, and she had no way to stop it. She could not help this creature that had been so much pain and agony. And feeling it was now her responsibility to ensure that Moore did not suffer as he did before he passed on to the next life. He offered her the chance to become what he was, to offer her the rarest opportunity. Though, even though it is a curse, he offered her a glimpse into far deeper knowledge that any other mage could have access to. And he wanted to pass it on to her, and she willingly accepted it. Now, after this has happened, she unfortunately lost sight of him as he faded away. And when she returned back to her town, the townsfolk immediately recognized that something had happened to her. Something changed within her. And she started to feel very shunned, very borderline of almost becoming an outcast. But due to what her family was, they still accepted her, though they kept their distance from her quite a bit. And as she had read so much knowledge, so much information, she had heard the rumblings of the gauntlight. She had heard of what was happening within it. And hearing of the one event in Otari, of where the dead literally rose from their graves to attack the folk within Otari, she started to keep her eye on the own local cemeteries around her town to ensure that didn't happen to those within the town. And after that attack on Otari, people believed and thought that she would try to raise the dead and try and create her own uprising. And after some time, after she would actually look after the local cemeteries, even so much as making her way to Otari from time to time to make sure that the graves were not changed, they were not moved. She eventually earned herself a marker that is very rarely spoken of. Only those who are very close to her and what she's led on to folks, she has this marker known as the Keeper. And as she finishes with the story, she looks at him, the mirror in her hand, shaking, almost like there was some kind of tension in her hand, but her gaze never broke from his.
So who is this keeper? Or who do you believe it to be if you don't know?
She doesn't say anything. She continues to stare at him, and she's gonna let that story reverberate in his head. And if he had been paying attention, she didn't say it was somebody else who was called the Keeper. She was trying to imply it meant more towards herself, but she's not saying anything. She's just going to let him think on it.
Pondering.
So, essentially, she relates to you that she was this student in the magical arts and kind of shunned by fellow students, and she had more interest in the darker and the darker arcane stuff. And this individual came into her life who she seems to have been infatuated with. And this individual noticed that and kind of clung to her and perhaps tested her. And when he found that she was the right one, he offered immortality. He offered the touch of undeath, which she accepted, with the promise of more knowledge in the darker arts. Not necessarily evil, but, just as something to study and to learn. Agitha has a great thirst for knowledge. And in a nutshell, that's pretty much the story she relates. This guy disappeared from her life, and it's, I think, Agitha, the assumption is that he died. Perhaps, you're not sure. You've noticed that your familiar that has come into your life shortly thereafter takes on some traits of this individual, but you've never shared that information, and you're not sure about that. But yeah. And yeah, that's pretty much what you shared, right? Nothing else.
Yeah, she doesn't tell him that the marker that she just told him, the keeper, was actually the mark that she earned for herself. She's not saying that to him. She's going to let him try and see if he can figure out if that's actually what she's been called.
Yeah. Nope, got nothing. From Frey's point of view, got nothing.
And I think also you would share, Frey might know this to some extent, is that after those events you went back to your home and left that and went to live in the woods in an old cabin closer to Otari. It's kind of in between Maravan and Otari, really. But you chose to go to Otari and do your supply runs or whatever, and that's how you became more and more accepted and known amongst the people in Otari. And this is something probably Frey would know. That, oh yeah, she frequents now and then. That's...
Actually, you told me before I know where she lives up north there, so... In the woods, or I forgot exactly what it was, like in the woods or in the clearing in the woods or something.
Yeah, she has a little cabin up there, a little home in the woods, to be by herself, to practice her arts.
Well, I've got nothing, so Frey stands up. I have a lot to think about, but I can't do that here, and I can't do that now, and we're supposed to meet in the morning, so
Actually, would he have heard of the keeper? Would he have at least heard, rumblings of this person named that?
Well, you'll have to put in a Discord chat exactly what the keeper is, because I'm not even sure.
Yeah, I got you.
As you stand up, Frey, give me a blind perception roll. Okay. You stand up, stretch, probably look around left and right, but...
Guard stuff, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Out of character here. I wrote down 3 front and back note cards of what she was saying, so...
Taking notes? Good.
Yep. Putting it into phrase words, of course.
Come on, Dizzy, hit that enter key. I can see you typing. So, yeah. I think the Keeper, as it's been called, is more of a rumor that Frey would be aware of in town. The rumor being this cloaked, shadowy character who's been spotted, usually in the graveyard. Prior to it being a guarded thing now, because they've got guards now posted on the cemetery at all times now since the attack. But prior to that, there was a rumor of a shadowy being with a lantern that would be seen late at night going through the cemetery. Nobody knows who it is or verified it, but it is a rumor that you would be aware of, known as the Keeper. Frey.
Okay.
Agitha's still watching him, see if he'll eventually put two together, see if he can link her story to the Keeper that she made mention, see if he can realize who he's talking to.
I'll leave that up to Max.
You've given me a lot to think about. I have initial thoughts, but I don't think right now is the time for me to say them. Maybe I do have to reconsider some of my positions, but
Happens every time.
until then, I think I'm going to go back to my room. I'm going to get some sleep, and hopefully tomorrow in the morning we can get along well enough to continue on with whatever it is we're doing here in the gauntlight.
Okay. And you make your way out down the hallway where you have
I give a little, courteous nod, bow, whatever, salute. Well, not salute, but
As he's walking down the hallway and away from her door, she gives out a cryptic message to him. The shadows are not always what they seem. And the dead don't rise unless given a command. Best to watch who walks those streets alone. And then she closes the door behind her.
Slam. I gotta edit that out. Alright, so you can make your way to your room, Frey, and all is well. A lot to ponder, a lot to think about. And for you, Agitha, go ahead and give me one more blind perception roll. Okay. Curious about the shadows and the unease that you felt in the chamber. Maybe it was Frey. Maybe not. But all is quiet. You stare into the mirror once again, pondering these thoughts. You'd never shared this information, at least not with anyone outside of a close few. This information about you, who you are, touched by undeath. And give yourself another 10 hit points on top of what's on your character sheet. As the wounds close. Okay. And you can begin your lying about. Of course, you only needed 4 hours of sleep, so you're all good. And you put your mirror away and you put it inside the chest and slide it back under the bed. Take a deep sigh. And the little Spidey comes up on your shoulder. And you feel very comforted as it does so. And that's where we'll leave it.